All right, so this is the CFBAD podcast, and this is going to be the first episode in which I am going to give you a really full, in depth breakdown of the SEC. Um, Use some of the knowledge I did gain at the media day and get this started in really the heart of college football. I want to give a full breakdown for both conferences. This is probably not intended for the casual fan. However, I will segment them in your teams or whatever. I'll go west, east. So if you just want to hear one team, I'll make sure it's all bookmarked. My boy Shmuley worked on a nice graphic. So hopefully we'll get the editing done and get that so it's a little more visually pleasing. And so you see a little less of this. But other than that, let's get right to it. So basically we concocted this pyramid of the SEC, right? And on top, by far, and nobody who's watching this is going to argue this, or please leave this in the comments if you do. Is at the top of the pyramid we have the Georgia Bulldogs, all right? And I'm going to break down every single team, so no need to explain. At the second tier, I have Bama and LSU and Tennessee, who I bet really a lot of y'all are going to agree with. I mean, they all had great years last year, very close to playoff appearances, really, for all three. Um, I mean, yeah, Heisman hopefuls for sure at LSU and Tennessee. Maybe somebody in Bama could eke through, probably from the running back position. But the one I do have on here is South Carolina, which I'll break down a little more. But that's kind of my tier right below Georgia on the pyramid. And then I got the third tier, who, I mean, maybe in the West could sneak in to the championship game if they have a good year, put it all together, get some of those transfer guys. And so in tier number three, I got the Hogs, because, I mean, KJ's coming back. Raheem put on that weight. He's looking good. New coaching, though, so a little bit of a question mark, but the experience is there. And Pittman, he needs a big year, so he could do it. Ole Miss, same thing. Kiffin needs some really signature wins. He's really going to try and beat Alabama. I don't know if he could do it on the road. I really think he lost his chance last year. I think he kind of blew it. But I mean, he's always hungry, and they added Zachary Franklin and whatnot. We'll get into that more. Kentucky, one of the most consistent programs in the SEC, no doubt. And the two that I'm gonna elaborate on more is I got Mizzou and Mississippi State kind of in that third tier. I really think there's a lot of improvement that they're gonna really show this season. Both of those teams, I like both of their coaches, and I think they are a little more hard nosed than a lot of these teams than these Tennessees or these Ole Misses, who are really just a one-dimensional team. I mean, it's getting the job done, but you got to think to like what extent. And then on my bottom ones, I got Auburn, A&M, and UF. I have Vandy kind of in between. I mean, they do feel like to me they're gonna improve, but it's still Vandy. UF not buying it. Auburn probably need to give Freeze a year. I'm really struggling. Like nobody really knows. And A&M, sorry y'all. I'm gonna elaborate on it either, but let me get to my notes. And we'll start with the West. We'll start with the top of the SEC West, and I mean, I'm still gonna start with Bama. I'm still gonna start with Bama at the top. I am not a Bama fan or a homer. No, anybody who knows me could tell you that. I absolutely despise them, but their model of consistency is definitely undeniable, right? And so the quarterback, it seems like Simpson's going to play. That's kind of what I've been hearing. I mean, their wide receiver room definitely lost some talent. They lost some talent to the transfer portal. And historically, I mean, since Saban's been there, that's probably been the strength of their team, at least their offense, right? But ironically, the thing that I've written down for Bama and how to be successful is they just need to go back to who they were. If you're a Bama fan and you're hearing all this about, well, we lost the number one pick or all that, like their best teams, in my opinion, were with McCarron and McElroy, and that's where they really established the identity. You know, when Kirby Smart was part of that team too, and they really had a hard nosed, smash mouth brand of football. And like in this SEC, especially with how weak the quarterback position is compared to other conferences, I think that they could return to their old brand of football, and nobody really wants to see that. Maybe Georgia's still better at doing that right now, but that's kind of my keys to success for Alabama. Go back to the OG ways, you know. Um, Getting rid of O'Brien was definitely good, you know, and they just gotta play good defense and good complementary football. That's really what I got outlined. I think Ty Simpson has all the skills to do whatever he does to run that offense. And I mean, Saban is Saban. So we'll see. But the decline is real. The decline is definitely happening. And this is not Saban's conference right now. This is Kirby Smart's conference. That's undeniable right now. And Kirby's going to be looking to win the SEC again. He's still got that bad taste in his mouth, you know, because he's Kirby. He wants to win every game, right? The game that I have outlined, especially for you gamblers out there, is the line for Bama has been around 10.5. I mean, I'm mostly looking at DraftKings, but the game that I outlined is obviously when they're going to host the Longhorns, because the Longhorns are returning a lot of talent and they got a lot of hype, and you know that Sark is going to be hungry to win that game. Obviously, we know the stat about Saban and assistants, whatever, you know, he dominates them. Sark's going to want to win that game. And I mean, the Longhorns fans feel really ripped off. And I mean, it was magic from Bryce Young that really snatched them that victory from the jaws of defeat. Um, so Texas is looking to improve on defense. They're bringing a lot of people back. There's a lot of hype around the Horns, and if Bama can go out and beat them week 2, I believe it is, that's a no better way to start your season than that. A top 25 win, top 15 probably, because Texas usually gets ranked high at the start. Um, that would be a big win. But if they lose, that 10.5 number, I do not think is going to happen. Um, I could see them definitely getting one conference L. If they do win that game, that 10.5 is probably pretty easy. I don't know if I'd want to play it though, because I could see Alabama being 10-2 and winning the West very easily, or maybe even 9-3 if they lose that Texas game. But they'll be favored against Texas. It's a home game. Saban's gonna be pissed. It's against his old assistant, so we know that history. But right now, I mean, Bama is definitely at least co-favorites, and probably I'm gonna pick them to win. As much as I hate to say it, I don't think they'll make the playoff. Um, but they might be the West representative for sure. And I mean, that could come down to head to heads. You know, somebody could have a better record out there. Maybe an LSU or a Ole Miss could have a better record. But given that, I mean, maybe given that Bama loses to Texas and then handles the conference pretty well, it gets crazy because it's the SEC West. You know, it's hard to pick against them. As much as I want to do it, I really want to pick the Hogs, you know, or Ole Miss or something. But yeah, which brings me to the next team who I'm going to cover, who also is on the top of the pyramid for me in the West, obviously. And they also have a monumental game to start off the season on Sunday night, and I got the LSU Tigers right basically neck and neck with Bama. The reason why I'm not picking them is because I don't think that Saban is going to lose to Kelly again. I know they've matched up a lot, you know, um, and Kelly finally got him last year, but that was in Baton Rouge. So in Tuscaloosa, I think it's fair to say that it's probably going to be a different story. But I mean, if Jalen Daniels can pull off some, or Jaden Daniels can pull off some heroics and use his legs, win the game, I mean, yeah, he's definitely a Heisman contender. You know, I mean, very, very. He's a 5-star at ASU, and I think people kind of forgot about him last year. Is that the dude can play. He's just talented. I mean, he's probably going to play some facet in the next level. And he's definitely a candidate for Heisman. I absolutely loved what I've seen. They did do well in the transfer portal. I mean, I think that the transfer portal is still very new, so we shouldn't be going too crazy into it. But I mean, they upped their defense for sure. Getting a guy like Omar Speights, yeah, I think LSU's defense is going to be really good, and then Perkins is probably the best player in the country, especially on that side of the ball. So that all is undeniable. And the other thing that's undeniable is, I mean, other than Saban, you probably have to say Kelly is the most consistent coach in the SEC. Maybe, I mean, Smart of late, but Kelly wins games. The dude wins games. But their number is 9.5. Um, they're returning good production, but if they lose to FSU, just kind of like if Bama loses to Texas, or if they beat FSU, then it's just a whole different game. I think it's in Orlando, um, so a neutral site kind of. But if they beat FSU, which I really don't know who's going to win that game, if they beat FSU, they could have some kind of fairy tale season. But I still am not drinking the Kool Aid, not on LSU. I think Kelly's a great coach, but I don't think he's going to win the SEC yet. I mean, great job winning the West last year. But if he goes back to back, I would be very surprised. I think that a lot of people are not going to be sleeping on them the way they were. Alabama's going to be. That's a tough game at Tuscaloosa. So their number at 9.5. I mean, it's one that I kind of don't want to touch. I could definitely see two conference losses plus FSU. But if they beat FSU, maybe they could go 10-2 and lose to Bama or Arkansas or something like that, and not represent the West, but still hit that over. I could see both ways going. But the fact is that FSU game is too tough for me, and the SEC West is too tough for me to say that with certainty LSU could get to that 9.5. If they didn't have that FSU game, I would definitely hammer it, but it's too tough. Too tough of a game, too tough of a team. They lost to them last year. I mean, both of them have national championship aspirations, probably, but yeah, LSU is going to be a good team, contender in the SEC. Sure, in the ship, I don't know, I don't know. We'll see though. I mean, definitely Perkins is going to be really fun to watch, really fun to watch. So, yeah, it's a good time to be an LSU fan, and it's always I'm always curious to see if Kelly could get it done, because he's been one of the better coaches for sure over the last decade, and he's building off something good, and it seems like the guys are buying in. So then the next team we're gonna cover is we're gonna move to the tier below, right? And I'm gonna put in the family heirloom. WPS, I got my family in Arkansas, the Jones family. Got to shout out them. But yeah, so Arkansas once again has pretty high expectations. Considering how the program has been the last I guess decade, really since Petrino left. They have pretty high expectations. Obviously, KJ is one of the most experienced quarterbacks in the conference. There's no question about that, and the dude can play. We saw we saw how bad he made those. He took over Provo. I mean, it was awful. I'm sorry to you Y fans, but it was absolutely brutal. He really showed the difference in SEC talent. He really did. That just objectively, he looked insane that game. But I mean, in the SEC, he definitely looks way more human. Is it good KJ or is it bad KJ? What KJ are you gonna get? Um, he's gotten better every year, I will say. Um, but I mean, it's a new coordinator, right? They're not in the Brile system. It's going to be a lot slower of an offense. And I actually got to ask him a question at the media day about him staying healthy. He says it's going to be key to go to the chiropractor, the massage, and all that. Get out of bounds more. So I think, and then Pittman was kind of saying during the interview that he's going to be chucking it more, which I don't know because I always think that players should play to their strengths, and I think KJ's strength, yeah, he can, he does have that arm talent, but he's way more scary when he's running downhill. You know, at this level, you can really run downhill, like the Cam Newton kind of deal, where if he's like that's a lot of weight, especially like with him and Sanders. So I think it's going to be different. You're not going to have the kind of like Baylor Bryles system going on. The run game is still going to be utilized heavily, but they're not going to be super fast to the line of scrimmage. They're going to be slow developing. Maybe time of possession will be more of a key stat for them. And maybe they're going to be more smash mouth. Though I would like to see that. I mean, Rocket getting 20, 25 carries a game and KJ like really power running it. I think that would be pretty hard to stop. But I mean, Pittman says they're going to air it out, so maybe they're going to air it out and it's going to work. They definitely lost a lot on defense, and obviously they lost Odom. But we'll see. We'll definitely see. Sanders put on a lot of weight, and he's still running fast apparently. So they're gonna miss Knox. That's no question. He was definitely their best playmaker, probably other than Sanders. So they're gonna miss him. But I mean, it seems like a decent time to be a Hogs fan, you know. But it's all up to KJ at the end of the day. You know, if he's their superstar, he's their superstar. But he's got to be the KJ we saw in Provo, not the KJ we saw, you know, many other times. So yeah, the games highlighted. Arkansas really has to beat A&M this year, in my opinion. Last year they'll probably left a bad taste in their mouth. They really had no business losing that game, and the goalpost, yeah. So that's always a big one. Ole Miss is going to be coming with a bad taste in their mouth too after the whopping they received last year. And then Arkansas hasn't beaten Bama in geez since like '06. I don't know. Yeah, might have to check me there. I don't know. I don't know the stat on it, but it's been a long, long time. So I think a lot of people would love to see Arkansas kind of have their Tennessee moment of last year and beat Bama. So we'll see. But I mean, it's going to be at Tuscaloosa. And they have that stretch where 4 weeks in a row they'll be going to Baton Rouge. I mean, technically they'll be wearing red against A&M, but it's kind of a road game, right? Then they'll be going to Oxford and then to Tuscaloosa. So if they can go 2-2, the rest of their schedule's cake. They should walk through. I know Missouri's given them trouble in the past, but they should if they get through that portion of the schedule, they should be good. Their number is 7. I kind of like the over. I got fooled by it last year, but I mean, clearly BYU is probably going to be a dub. They should start off 3-0. It's really going to be that stretch of schedule because if they don't take care of business at least one or two of those games, then yikes. You could be Pittman could be nearing the hot seat if they don't win one of those games. But Pittman really needs a signature win. That's what I'm saying. Like Arkansas, yeah, the 7. If you win 8 games, yeah, that's a good year as long as Pittman gets a win over Alabama or LSU. He needs to beat A&M. So yeah, that's basically my take on Arkansas. You know, there's a lot to love, but I mean, there's still some question marks, you know, on both sides of the ball. And then the next team, who I think is pretty much on the same level as the Hogs, is Ole Miss, the school I attended for approximately 1 month. So, yep. I don't have an Ole Miss hat, though, sorry. But Ole Miss, who the hell is playing quarterback? I don't know. I think it should be Sanders because I mean, Sanders is the most experienced quarterback in the SEC, period, right? Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, he has no SEC experience, right? But like, overall football experience, he's really gotten it done in big games. You know, he won that really big, he won the a really big game in Bedlam, you know, and he was a key part. I know that defense was really good, and he did come up short in the championship game against Baylor. But I mean, that was a really good year for Sanders. He clearly can get it done with his legs. He's experienced. And Dart, I haven't seen enough from him to like. It seems like Kiffin is leaning towards Dart right now. I mean, that could change in a few days. And Kiffin seems like the type of guy who is not gonna, he's not gonna play his cards. You know, he's a seasoned poker player or whatever. So he's not gonna say. Um, but if it's Sanders, that's different too. And they're adding one of the best. I think that Franklin will come in. Franklin from UTSA. I mean, he's really historically probably their best receiver they've ever had, and another great year last year. I think he's coming off consecutive 1,000 yards. I had him on my fantasy team last year. He was a beast. Zachary Franklin. If you don't know that name, maybe you should after this because I think he's gonna really go off for Ole Miss. Obviously, Judkins is a monster, but with that quarterback position being a question mark, I think that that's kind of sus, especially when they're going to Tulane week 2. I mean, Tulane is losing Spears, right? But they still got a good team. They're gonna be a top 25 team for sure by that game, and it's gonna be on the road. And if you don't know who your quarterback is, you could like mess around and lose that game. So Ole Miss definitely has to be taking Tulane seriously. I think they will. Kiffin sometimes chokes games, you know, that's just a fact. At Tennessee, USC, Ole Miss, it's just a fact. Sorry. Um, but yeah, I don't really know who their quarterback is. Maybe it's Dart, maybe it's Sanders. They do have insane weapons. I didn't even mention Trigg too. He's pretty good. He's a pretty good tight end. Um, and then I was touching upon this with Pittman, right? Kind of why I have them in the same tier. He needs a win bad. He needs to beat Bama. He needs to beat Georgia. Too bad both of them are on the road. He kind of has to beat Arkansas and Tulane. Then if those are both L's, LSU, you know, the Egg Bowl, I don't think that's going to be an easy game too. So Ole Miss is another team where I really don't want to touch their over and under. I think it was at 7.5. But I mean, they could mess around and lose to Tulane, and then they're in the SEC West. You know, so who knows? And they play Georgia and Bama on the road. So that's probably one of the toughest schedules in the. I'm not a big like schedule ranker guy, but if you're playing the SEC West and you got Georgia and Bama on the road and you have like a quality non-conference team, I mean, yeah, shout out to Ole Miss for actually scheduling something pretty legit. You know, I didn't maybe they didn't think Tulane was going to be good, but hey, I'm excited to see a top 25, you know, non conference matchup. So that's cool. But Kiffin really needs to win. He needs to win a big game and show me that he's legit. He's kind of been treading water, I feel like. He's been doing good. The offense has been looking good, you know, ever since he took over during COVID. But it's just they're missing something and that defense like you'd be a fool not to say it leaves a lot to be desired, you know. If they're going to outpace everyone great, but like they're not playing smash mouth football. I mean, so we'll see. We will see. And within the same state, we're going down to Starkville, and we're gonna talk about the Bulldogs. And I'm pretty high on the Bulldogs. I am. I think that the media voted them last in the West, and I actually got them above Auburn and A&M. I think like obviously when we bring up the Bulldogs, it's a tragedy, you know. Um, Leach was one of the biggest football legends, you know. Um, it's really a shame he's not part of the sport anymore or part of this world. But I think that they could not have gotten a better replacement. Arnett's got a lot of respect around his name, you know, and this is SEC respect too. And the thing that I like about Arnett is that he's a real defense guy, you know. And who are the other defense guys in the conference? Well, how about Saban and Smart, right? You know. Um, so I like Arnett, and I think that their defense was really getting a lot better last year. I like their front, and I think that if it could really unite them too. And obviously Leach is like a pioneer of the air. He's the pioneer of the air raid and modern offense. Um, in fact, I don't even think he played. I think he just drew up those plays. He's a genius. But it is like they had the lowest rushing per game last year, or second lowest. It was like them and some non-power five. They were not running. And Will Rogers, I got to ask him a couple questions too. He said that he will be doing more RPOs, so he'll be more involved in that. That wasn't really a thing under Leach. Leach kind of used the short passing as the run game. The interesting thing is maybe Mike Wright from Vandy will come in and make some noise because I mean the dude could flat out fly. So I mean, if something's not happening, I think that Mississippi State. I mean, people might disagree with like Bama having a QB controversy and Ole Miss and Georgia having QB controversies, but I definitely think that Mississippi State. I mean, maybe regardless from Ole Miss if they choose Dart over Sanders, but if Sanders starts, I think that Mississippi State has the most capable backup in Mike Wright, and I think that Will Rogers, though, I mean, the reason that Mike Wright's not starting is because Will Rogers is a stud. You know, this guy is really good. I don't think he's just a system guy. I like, I think he's a good, like, kind of quiet confidence, and he has a chip on his shoulder because nobody's really taking him seriously and calling him a system guy. And I think that him and Arnett, I mean, even though Arnett's a different guy, I think it's gonna be a good team. I think they're gonna buy in, and I think they could kind of like be more hard nosed, kind of like what I was saying about Arkansas, but obviously Arnett's going to be more on the other side of the ball. So if they can really establish like a physical brand of football, then I think that they can kind of make some noise and take some people by surprise. I think 7-5 would be reasonable. Um, I'm probably going to take their over on 6. I think they're going to win more than 6 games, honestly. The key to that, once again, I'm going to bring up a non-conference game early on. I think they're going to host the Arizona Wildcats. The Wildcats are probably projected lower half of the Pac-12 just because that's a very deep conference. But I mean, Jaden Delore is a pretty good quarterback. So if they can go out and really display their brand of football against Arizona and get going on the right note, I think they could win some games in the conference. I think they could beat Auburn, you know, or maybe Ole Miss again. So I think there's a. I'd be actually pretty optimistic if I was a Mississippi State fan because it seemed like they were like Mike Leach had gotten them to the point where they were just one notch away from actually being there, right? They won the Egg Bowl. And the key to that, though, it was the defense was looking a lot better. So if they can just keep building on that, they still have a great quarterback. They're going to establish more of the running game, and we'll see. I think that the Bulldogs definitely are my sleeper pick in the West. Um, I'm buying the Bulldogs. I'm buying the Bulldogs in the West and the East. But yeah, okay. So moving on, we got Auburn. Auburn and Coach Freeze. Um, I did mention Kelly being proven, and Freeze is proven. And the difference between him and Kelly is Kelly maybe did it more nationally and more consistently, but Freeze has done it in the SEC West before. You know, he really has. But other than that, I don't know anything about Auburn, and like I've talked to the people covering the team, and it seems like everybody is kind of clueless. You know, so I mean, I don't really know what to say. I mean, the game I got highlighted is at A&M. They're gonna have to go to A&M. But I mean, Ashford, they got to utilize his strengths. Running back room is doing good. They lost Bigsby, obviously, but they just got to. I think they just got to keep it competitive. I'm not buying Hugh Freeze first year. I don't know. Kelly definitely took me by surprise by winning the West, but I don't think Auburn has the talent to work with really. And yeah, but I mean, what I'll what I'll be looking for. I touched upon this last episode is with Auburn, I'm really looking at 2 games, right? I'm seeing how they could play against Bama, how they could play against Georgia, because they're going to be playing them every year. That's not going to change when OU and Texas or Clemson or whoever in the future will come in. That's not going to change, right? They're still going to have to compete against Bama and Georgia, right? And I think that if they can keep games close, be competitive, maybe sneak a couple games in the West and maybe get to 7. I mean, their over under is not one that I would touch. I think that 7 is realistic. I could see 5 though too. I think it was at 6 or 6.5. So I mean, Auburn just is a lot to leave the desired for me. A lot left, a lot of unknowns. The only thing that's known is that Freeze is a pretty good coach. He's got a lot of baggage coming, and I don't know how that's going to deal with. I'm not going to touch upon that, but yeah, basically my notes on Auburn is just keep it competitive and let Freeze start to build the program. Um, and yeah, so last and least, sorry, is A&M, and I'm gonna look the camera dead in the eye and say like, I don't get the A&M hype. I don't get it. And the thing is I've bought into it before, kind of. I kind of bought into it last year, and just that, how much of a travesty that was. Like, the fact that people are picking them in their top 20, like, who did they beat? So with A&M, I have them highlighted at Miami, and they, I feel like they could lose that game. I mean, they lost to App State at home. For Christ's sake, like they lost to App State at home. A-Chain was their best player, and he's gone, right? So A-Chain is gone. I know that they're getting a nice Smith back, and he's a stud, right? He's probably going to play on Sundays. He's going to play on Sundays. Um, and they are returning a lot of production, which, I mean, that's maybe the selling point where a lot of people are buying them. And their number was like 8 wins. I'm like, how? They're in the West. I don't see them winning 8. I definitely take the under. Um, I'm even considering teasing the under and going like lower than 7 for extra odds, because I just don't I don't see it. I don't see it. They're clearly losing their best player. It was in disarray last year. I mean, shit, they were smoking pot in the damn locker room. Like that, you need to be a better leader than that, Jimbo. I'm sorry. And it's just gone from here, you know. And Jimbo sneaked out of some games too. I mean, he really should not have beaten Arkansas. I mean, yeah, he should have beaten Alabama and choked that. But one credit I will give Jimbo is he brings it against Saban every time. Um, but I mean, it's going to be at Miami. I think Crystal Ball is not under as much pressure as Jimbo. So when they go to Miami, though, I think Texas was still a -7. Um, I don't know about that. I don't trust Miami either. I think they kind of suck. Sorry, sorry, Canes fans, but A&M, I just don't get it. I don't get the hype. Maybe they go undefeated and are able to head into conference play, but I'm expecting Arkansas gets revenge. Maybe A&M's better than Auburn. Auburn's a question mark, but Weigman, is he all that? He's a dual threat. He's good, but I mean, I don't think he's better than Rogers or KJ. So I think or Daniels. So I think he's definitely lower half of that division in terms of quarterbacks. I think Mike Wright is better than him, honestly, or Sanders. So I mean, he's really at the low end of that. So if you're saying you're going to get a lot of a lot of production from him, I'm gonna say, well, bet. Let me see it. Where's the running back room has been good at A&M for a while. I mean, they had Spiller and they had A-Chain. I mean, these guys were studs. So and now A-Chain's gone. So we're gonna have to see how it works. And yeah, I mean, I'm really not buying A&M. I think that Jimbo is on the severe hot seat, obviously, and I think that he's probably gonna be gone. He's probably gonna be gone mid-year. Unless he takes care of business. Arkansas is absolutely a must-win. Miami, he needs to dominate. He can't leave any questions. Bama, he should. Maybe he should pull it off. With all that money he's getting and how much the program seems in disarray. I mean, maybe I'm crazy, but I'm picking them last. I just don't get it. I think they could miss a bowl game again. I mean, maybe this is recency bias, but last year was bad. So, and I don't see, yeah, the return of production, but what production? They didn't, you know? You got to be returning something good and building upon that. Like if you're returning a 5-7 team and that's what you're going after, like that doesn't seem that good to me. I don't know. So that's my rant on A&M. I really don't think they're it. And I know they're everyone's hipster pick. Hey, it's Jimbo's year, LSU, Bama's down, whatever. But no, I think they're in the gutter. I really do. I think they're in the gutter and they got to hire a new coach and they got to do it quick before Texas just absolutely bullies them when they're there. So, and Oklahoma. I mean, yeah, if you're an A&M fan, want to flame me in the comments, please do because I'll think about this logically. It's all love. I appreciate passion within the realm of college football. So yeah, let me hear it. If I'm wrong, let me hear it. But yeah, we'll see. Obviously, this is all speculation and it's talking season. So yeah, but I mean, if you are into the gambling side right now, I'm going to touch upon that in more episodes and really feature that. But I mean, A&M is an under that I would definitely take. Probably don't touch the line against Miami because I think Miami sucks, but definitely take A&M on the under. Um, and yeah, so that wraps up the SEC West. Bama, LSU probably still at the top. Arkansas or Ole Miss could sneak their way in. Mississippi State is my dark horse to really just get the ball rolling and maybe finish the season ranked or receiving some votes, getting to 7-8 wins. Auburn, who knows? Freeze has done it before, but their roster just is. They don't got the guys. They don't got the guys. And A&M, maybe they got the guys, but they've had the guys. They've always had the guys. It's like okay, and yeah, that wraps up the SEC West. If y'all are looking for a Heisman candidate, I say Daniels probably would be my number one for sure. I just think Rodgers won't have the flashy stats and plays, even though he won't have as many wins. And I mean KJ maybe a dark horse too, but Daniels is a little more success recently and maybe a little more speed. And I don't like that KJ is not gonna be power running as much. I think that's his strength, but whatever. I'm not a coach. So yeah, my pick for Heisman in the West, if you were to pick one, would be Daniels. But I mean, I probably wouldn't play it. Um, and so yeah, that's my wrap up on the West. Moving on to the SEC East. And so number one, I got the Vanderbilt Commodores. Yep. No. Number one, I don't even need to say it. They've been on top back to back. Only one SEC championship though in those 2 years, so they're gonna look to do that again. And the first thing that I'm gonna say is your schedule, Georgia. Seriously, what a joke! What an absolute joke. I mean, like last year, it was cool seeing them whip up on Oregon, and their second stringers whipped up on Oregon. So I mean, I think that not having that kind of test early on is gonna hurt them. I think that they'll probably go through the regular season unscathed because they just miss everybody. They don't have a tough game. Florida sucks. Auburn sucks. Um, they're not scheduling Clemson. They're not scheduling Oregon. So basically, their season's not going to start until they go to Knoxville. And I still think they're going to win that game. But we'll see. Obviously, I'll touch on Tennessee in just a sec. But I mean, you got a very quality team and a very quality coach, and it's just going to be the next guy up. I mean, Carson Beck is going to be pretty good. Their weapons are insane. Bowers is going to be playing halfback half the time. You know, he's really going to get the rock a lot now that Bennett's gone. I mean, the question people are going to ask is how important was Bennett? Because, I mean, if you remember that game when Bennett replaced Juwan Mathis, I mean, Georgia might have lost that game if Mathis kept playing. Mathis was not good. And then he was gone. I mean, Bennett seemed like a really good leader. He had that kind of like Baker Mayfield-esque confidence to him. And he's a two-time national championship quarterback. That's That's a rare air. That's rare air. So I think they're losing like an all-time great player for sure. But they have another one too. They have probably one of the best tight end prospects we've ever seen. Um, and I mean, he would be a dark horse Heisman for me if he's even a dark horse. Um, so yeah, basically Georgia, wait till UT, take care of business. You know, you don't have Missouri on the road, so I just don't see Georgia losing until Tennessee maybe. And Tennessee has to be showing me a lot for me to think that Tennessee has a chance in that game. So, not a lot to say about Georgia other than they're great. And I mean, I'm not going to touch on the off the field issue because this is not what I'm going to touch on in this podcast. But they definitely are the kings of this conference and the kings of the sport, and they will continue to be doing that. But, however, for some reason, this is giving me 2014 FSU vibes. I think that Georgia could just absolutely waltz through the SEC, maybe get a test against Bama or LSU or whoever, right? And then come in as the one seed and then run into like Michigan or Ohio State or Penn State or a Pac 12 team that just absolutely surprises them. I could see that because I think that this schedule is really going to hurt them. I don't like it seems like an ACC schedule, you know. And like the East is better for sure, but I mean, that's just I know, yeah, go ahead and play it or whatever. You play it yourself, right? I get it. I get it, Kirby. But yeah, I mean it's kind of tough to talk about Georgia right now. So I'll just leave it at that. They're the Kings, you know, and they're probably going to go through. I would take maybe the over. They're not going to lose a game. And if they do, it's going to be Tennessee. So unless Kiffin pulls off some magic and is like unless Kiffin's like only rehearsing one game, which I mean he might be doing. He might be like scripting plays for Georgia the whole season. That's something he would do. But no, Georgia's probably going to win every game until the playoff. Yeah, maybe the West opponent could surprise them, but schedules left a lot to be desired for. I want to watch good games. I want to watch Georgia play a good game, but I mean, at least Tennessee seems like they're up right now, and it is on the road, so maybe they'll only be like a touchdown favorite that game. But yeah, that's my take on Georgia, and then we're gonna go straight to Tennessee. Okay, um, they are very good, right? They're very good. And I think that they might actually be upgrading at the quarterback position. Um, I think that Milton, he's probably my pick for first team All SEC because I mean, watching like KJ light up and saying like how much Milton's arm talent was absolutely incredible. And I mean, he had a great bowl game against Clemson. So I mean, he's really incredible, but their receivers are gone. He doesn't have Jalen Hyatt anymore. Well, I mean, Hooker had Hyatt, but we'll see how it goes. I think that Jabari Small is going to play a big role too, especially if Hypo can keep taking the top off the defense like perfectly, like how he does. I think that Small could get a lot more carries, and the backfield could be utilized a lot more. Um, it's kind of like Ole Miss with the defense; they're gonna have to outpace everyone. You know, if you're running this kind of offense and you're scoring that quick and you're putting up that many points, you're putting up what they put up like 47 a game. You're gonna have your defense is just not gonna be good enough, you know. So that's my only doubt. You're just gonna have to outpace, um, and that's really tough to do against Georgia, or I mean some other teams in the SEC. So I mean, unlike Georgia, I don't think their season starts then, right? I definitely think there's a good team. I think their ceiling is really high, but at the same time, I mean, like their number is 9.5. I'm not touching that either because we don't know. We don't know. South Carolina is still a really good team, I think. And they do have to play Bama on the road. So, I mean, you're looking at maybe. I mean, they do have to play Bama on the road, and let's face it, they'll probably lose to Georgia again. So, that's two losses, and they could find a third loss in there, so they would take the under right now. I could totally see them going to 10-2, winning the games they should, losing the ones or winning the games they should, losing the ones they should too, right? But I mean, Milton, all eyes on Milton. Um, I'm probably gonna throw some on him winning the Heisman, just because I think that talent's ridiculous and that system's ridiculous too. And it's clear that Heisman goes to systems. Like look at how many system guys, look at how many Heisman's Lincoln Riley's generated. Almost even did a fourth with fucking Jalen had in crazy numerical season. Um, so I mean Milton I think is a great bet for Heisman, great bet in the SEC. Um, they got to replace their receivers and their defense is just gonna not be good enough. So I mean, could they win the East? Basically, could they beat Georgia? Yeah. Will they? I don't think so. I'm more of a defense win kind of guy. Their ceiling is through the roof for sure, but I think Tennessee will be like a top 15 team, not top 10. They'll be really good. But I mean, one-sided, new quarterback. I could see Milton winning 10 games in the Heisman, but I mean, losing to Georgia and Bama and not getting to represent the East, which is just how it is. Maybe it'll change, but that's just how it is. So, I mean, it's still a great time to be a Tennessee fan, given the 2 decades of suffering. So, I mean, great team. And the game I have highlighted is it's actually going to be the week before they play the Bulldogs. They host the Bulldogs, and they're going to be traveling to Columbus. So I know Shmuley's on board with that too, but yeah, I definitely think Drinkwitz could beat them. That could be that third L that we're talking about, because that is a trap game of all trap games, right? That's the trap game. And Mizzou is going to want to win that game. I think that UT is going to be focused against Scar, but they might not be focused against Mizzou. And I think Mizzou is actually pretty quality. So that could be a tough game. That could be a game where I, without looking at the number, probably want to take Missouri with the points. But we'll see. That's a big trap game with them because they're going to realize how important that Georgia game is. Like, they're realizing that right now. And I think they're kind of, I would love to see it happen again, but I don't know. Maybe I use this logic with LSU against Bama, and maybe I'm using it with Tennessee, but like it doesn't seem like they're going to lose to them either. Maybe they do. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Bama's down. But I think that at Tuscaloosa is going to be even harder than at Athens. I mean, than hosting Athens, actually. Hosting Georgia. What am I saying? Because last year they went to Athens, and, they're going to lose that game either way. So it kind of worked out in their favor that they got to host Bama, because I don't know if they win that game if they don't host Bama, because they really fed into that crowd. So they're going to really have to bring it and be the better team. They're going to really have to be the better team against Bama, and I don't know if they're ready to do that. But if they are, then great. So, yeah, 9.5, tentatively take the under, but I probably won't put money on it. I could see them being 10-2. And, yeah, watch out for that Mizzou game if you're a Tennessee fan. And then with that, I'm going to move to the team that ruined everybody's season last year. And, yeah, that's the Gamecocks. And there's two coaches. Well, Arnett is one of them. And there's another coach that I really believe in. But Beamer is one of the coaches that he's insane. He said all the right things at Media Day. And I think South Carolina's back. And I think he could take them eventually to a level where it was higher than Spurrier even took them. And I think Spurrier won the East. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think Spurrier won the East around 2010 or something. So, yeah, pretty high, pretty big shoes, but I mean, not that big. They don't have like a title or nothing. So, yeah, I know a lot of people would put Kentucky up there. They have more of the model of consistency, but I mean, I think Rattler's in good hands right now. And I think that Beamer just knows how to win. He's just been part of a lot of good trees. And their turnover margin was not good last year, if I remember right. And if they take care of that, if Rattler plays if the first half is improved and the second half he plays the same as he did last year, you're looking at an 8-9 win team again. Why not? So I mean, I absolutely like South Carolina, and I would hammer the over for sure. I think they're great. I think they're going to be, they could be right up with Tennessee as the. I think they could be better than Tennessee. Honestly, there's a chance. Um, they do have the best punter in the SEC, the legend Kroger. Um, yeah, and they got to keep winning big games. They're going to have a lot of big games. They did great last year. Definitely insane second half of the year, especially after getting whooped by the Hogs. Um, and they have a really big opportunity to have a big win against Drake May and North Carolina and Mac Brown. So if they can win that game, that will probably be a ranked win to start off the season. They should be in the top 25 preseason. I don't really know, but they'll be ranked coming off and building some momentum in the East, and I think that they could hang with everybody except maybe Georgia. Um, so I'm really high on South Carolina. I think that 6.5 is very disrespectful. Even if they climbed a number, I would probably still take the over. Um, so yeah, are we going to see second half South Carolina, or are we going to see first half South Carolina? That's the question. But Beamer is just going to get more and more experience there, and as a head coach, he's a special teams guy, which I really like. Um, And yeah, so I'm high on South Carolina. I think it's a great, great, great time to be a Gamecock fan. And I think that, I mean, I won't say the sky's the limit, but I think the ceiling is very, very, very high. And Rattler, I feel like, is still getting disrespected a little bit. I know there's some issues for sure. And he's not the type of guy he was heralded to be coming out of Elite 11 and everything. And he's Austin Stogner is going to be gone too. So that's going to be a change. But I just think they're a quality team. They're a quality team, and I think they'll keep up that quality. So South Carolina, I'm high on. Here's another team I'm pretty high on, who I mentioned a little bit before, is the Missouri Tigers. I do have them above Kentucky, well, and A&M, but I have them above Kentucky, right? Which a lot of people will be like, all right, hold up, Kentucky's adding Leary, yada yada yada. What has Mizzou done? Well, if you look at Mizzou last year, their home games, they were incredible. Um, I think they were they won 4 or 5 games at home, and then one of their losses was to Georgia, where they just completely collapsed at the end. I mean, they really could have won that game. And then you're looking at a team that was actually really good and took a lot of people by surprise, won a lot of big games, played spoiler, and I think they can do that again very easily. I mean, they got Cook, who's just a quarterback who's average, Sorry, that's just what I've seen. And their schedule's kind of hard too because they got K State. I think they host K State week 3, so they host K State, and that's going to be tough. But I actually think they could win for sure. They could win that, and they kind of need to have like a South Carolina year where Eli and I'm Drinkwitz in the Kool Aid, eh? I'm Drinkwitz in the Kool Aid out of my Beaver cup. Drinkwitz is the real deal. I'm sorry, he is. I like him. I like Mizzou. They've been competitive, They were very competitive at home, so I think if they could just take that a little bit on the road and do better, I think there might be some great things. They've done well at recruiting within the state, and they're returning a lot of production. And I know I kind of went on that rant against A&M, but here's my logic: is like if you're returning production and like look, they had about the same record last year, but for Missouri, that's such an upward trend with a new coach, right? That's such an upward trend. But with A&M and like an older coach who's expected his expectations are here and they're here, that's a lot different when Drinkwood's expectations are here and they're here, right? And then they're returning that production. That seems way more legit to me. Sorry if I'm just using this logic, twice and just twisting it my own way, but I think that makes sense. Um, and I think they play pretty good complementary football. I know that's what I brought up a lot, and everybody might be like, "Yeah, it's an offense game or whatever." Like, but I mean, I feel like they do it right. They have a lot of chances for upsets. K State, South Carolina, and Tennessee. I don't know if they're gonna do Georgia like that again, especially now that they're going to have to go to Athens. But I mean, they were a great home team last year, and they have those 3 games at home. And I honestly think they could go 2-1, maybe 1-2. But I think either way they'll get that 6.5. They could probably take care of Vandy and UK. And I mean, Arkansas, they've really given Arkansas trouble always for some reason. Arkansas seems better on paper every time Mizzou beats them. That's just a fact. So we'll see. But I think that Drinkwitz could get his first signature win when the Vols come to Columbia. So yeah, Mizzou I'm very high on. Eli Drinkwitz, he was very cool during the SEC media days. And yeah, pretty high on Mizzou. So now I'm moving to Kentucky. And Kentucky has been very consistent for sure. And they've kind of, like I was alluding to, Mississippi State being kind of the bullies of the West, where like UK has been that team in the East. I'll give them that for sure. But they're losing Rodriguez, and Rodriguez was actually a very good running back, like straight up. So, and they got some people kind of breathing on their neck. I think that the East was really weak, and they were able to thrive and win all the games they should, and they're kind of good at beating the lesser teams. But I think we might be in a case where the other teams are maybe getting about as good as them, and I'm not a big Leary guy. I think that Levis was better than Leary. I'm not the biggest Levis guy either. Sorry, Titans fans, but I'm not the biggest Leary guy. He did get hurt last year, so you need to keep him healthy. The defense is going to be good. Receiving room is good. But, I mean, they got to fill that hole in running back, and they got to... One game, I mean, I'm highlighting is the end of the year against Louisville. I think Louisville could be a little better than they were last year with Baum. And I think that Kentucky has to show Vandy what's good because, yeah, I was talking about Mizzou and South Carolina coming up, but, like, Vandy's right there, too. And if UK just smashes Vandy, they'll be like, all right, we're here still, maybe get some confidence, whatever. But, I mean, if they don't, if Vandy hangs in there or beats them, then, I mean, like, UK could be losing their identity because I think last year was slightly disappointing. And it seemed like Levis kind of played them outside of some big games with turnovers. But, I mean, Stoops, definitely everyone respects him. There's no doubt about it. Their number is 7. Definitely not touching that in either way. It's like Iowa, you know? You can't bet over or under. That's the number they're going to get. Maybe you could tease it and bet that they're going to win 7 exactly. I don't know. I wouldn't do that either. I could see 6. I could see 8. Not 9. Not 5. Vegas knows, everyone knows who Kentucky is. And frankly, their ceiling is not high enough with Leary for me to say they have a threat in the East, and they really haven't been able to pull off a lot of upsets in Stoops' tenure. So that's why I'm a little higher on South Carolina or Missouri than I am on Kentucky. However, I do definitely respect the brand of football they play. And nobody really likes playing Kentucky, especially at Lexington. Nobody wants to do it. And if they say they do, they're lying. So, yep. That's my take on Kentucky. They're a good team, good program. So, yeah. But not great. That's just a fact. And then, finally, we're going to Vandy. Wait a minute. No, I gotta talk about UF too. That's my bad. So now we're moving to Vandy. Vandy lost, right. But I think Clark Lee is a really good coach, and they're building off a really good year. In fact, the best year since Franklin was coach. So I think they could kind of make a splash again, and I think they're going to hit an over on the number. The thing that is interesting is they do kind of have a tough non-conference schedule for them. They're going to have to go to Wake, which, I mean, Wake without Hartman, we'll see who they really are. They're probably going to be much worse. I know their number was a lot lower than it was last year, which makes sense. Hartman has really been one of the best quarterbacks in college football over the past few years. But Wake doesn't have them anymore. But, I mean, for Vandy to go to Wake, they'll probably be underdogs. you know, because Wake's kind of a quality ACC team. I think that Vandy could definitely win. And then right after that, they're gonna go play they're gonna go to Vegas and they're gonna play Odom's UNLV. So if they can go 4-0 in the non-conference, that's legit. They hit their number. But their schedule after that is the SEC, and it's gonna be tough. Can they beat Florida? I think they can. Can they beat Kentucky? Maybe. Are they gonna miss Right? Yes. But you know, they can beat UF on the road. Then you're talking. Um, I have no idea who put Vandy to win the conference. That's absolutely insane. Um, but yeah, you know, I think that Vandy. It's definitely. I know I've said this about a lot of other teams. It's a good time to be a Vanderbilt fan. You know, why not? You could approach bowl eligibility. You know, that's good. That's good. And the East is actually tough, tougher than it has been. So I mean, it's a great thing that Lee is doing over at Vanderbilt, and I expect it to continue, and I expect them to show out in the non-conference, and that's really what it matters. They got to represent the SEC when they go to Vegas and to Wake, because yeah, that's kind of what it's all about. Um, and yeah, hold up, let me get my notes on the UF. All right, Florida Gators. So I did ask Coach Napier about Utah in at the SEC Media Days, and he said, "Yeah, they're getting ready." He has the utmost respect for Utah. They're 8-point underdogs, I believe, right now, but I think Utah is gonna smash them. I don't know. Maybe sometimes Utah doesn't start the season off well, but I think Utah is really gonna smash them. I'm definitely not a believer in Graham Mertz. Sorry. Dairy raid. No, I'm not a believer in Graham Mertz. Um, just not. Napier's been doing great in recruiting. That's good, but you should probably give him another year. I don't think he should get fired this year, but I mean, in the orange and blue game or whatever their spring game was, that's kind of that's insane that it was 10-7. I'm sorry. That's weird. That's really weird. And from what I've heard, I didn't watch that. Sorry, I'm not grinding tape like that. I follow football. I'm not grinding tape on a spring game. But like when I look at the score and I'm hearing bad things already, that's not good. Especially with the toxicity of that fan base and the expectations. So that's not good. Florida, I think their number is at 5.5. Vegas clearly does not like them either. I still think they're gonna get that under because look, they play Utah and Florida State non-conference. Think about it. That's 2 L's. That just is. And so, are they going to scrape together like 3 conference wins? I don't know. I don't really. Every single game they play, I could see them lose. They have to beat Vandy for sure. Um, and then, yeah, Kentucky. Could they squeeze by a game? Could they beat the Hogs when they host them? I'm thinking no on all that. I don't. I think Florida's kind of like Auburn, where they're a question mark still. They lost A Rich, who carried them through some games for sure. And it's just, I don't think they're good yet. And I think the East is good enough where, like, you kind of have to be ready right now. You don't really get a grace period. And I think that if Utah really punches them in the mouth hard, and that's going to be tough to come back from. Because you start your season at Utah and then end it against Florida State. Like, wow. At least they're doing that. At least they're not Georgia. So I could honestly see Vandy finishing with a better record than Florida. That's why I brought them up first. I know that Florida's number is too higher by Vegas, but it's just not. It's not a good time to be a Gators fan. I'll say that for sure. It's it just leaves a lot to be desired. They played sloppy a lot of games, and they lost one of the most talented kids, you know, in college football. So I will say this. I don't know. I was saying that like Napier could be losing his job. I don't think he should. I think they should keep Napier on board. I kind of like him, but I don't think the on-field result's going to be there. I think that patience is kind of a lost art, especially in the SEC at these big name programs like UF. So I think my request is be patient. See how the recruiting does, and then if it's still maybe after year 3, if Napier doesn't take a stride, then you can maybe look elsewhere. But it's not good times for Florida. Um, yeah. Could they defend the swamp against the Hogs? I don't think so. And yeah, it'll be tough to make a bowl game. That's just the sad thing about the non-conference being tough. Even though we love seeing those games, I'm gonna love seeing them play on Thursday night. But yeah, I'm not that high on the Florida Gators. So yeah, that's kind of wrapping up the East. I got Florida, Vandy, UK, Mizzou, SCAR, UT, and Georgia, pretty much in that order. I still think it's Georgia's division, and I think everyone else does until maybe Tennessee could pull off some magic. I am very high on Milton. Um, I think he's going to top my quarterback rankings really in the SEC. So I'm high on Milton. It's going to be interesting to watch how South Carolina and Mizzou develop. And I'm sorry, I'm not that interested in what Kentucky does. I feel like we know at this point what they're going to be. They're a good team, but that's that. Um, Beamer, I feel like his ceiling's a lot higher. And yeah, but we're probably looking at Georgia representing the East against Alabama and LSU in the West. And yeah, maybe we'll see a Saban Kirby rematch. Which I mean, that's pretty chalk, especially for me. But I mean, like, I love the Hogs. I love Ole Miss, Mississippi State. But I mean, there's just maybe they beat up on each other like every single other year, and everyone in the West has 2 losses, and then all of a sudden, yeah, what are we gonna do? And then people are talking about scenarios in December where maybe the West team beats the team in the East, and then how do you leave them out of the playoffs? But then how do you leave an undefeated SEC East team out of the playoffs? And then it'll become a shit show. But hopefully that doesn't happen. The East is pretty good. The East is better than it's been in a long time, and part of that's my belief in South Carolina and Missouri, and the consistency that Kentucky's done, and then the fact that Heupel's brought the Volunteers back, and his system is very game changing, very elite offense, and very elite talent throughout the division for sure. So yeah, I'm gonna be wrapping up this episode then with probably my 2 favorite over unders. I definitely think that I would take the South Carolina over, and I definitely would take the A&M under. I think they're both locks. South Carolina 6.5. So if you're doing units or whatever, I don't know. I don't do that. Let's say 3 units instead of 2 or 1. I do 3. Put all your units on South Carolina winning more than 6.5 games. I think that's very disrespectful to Beamer. And 8 games for A&M? No. 7 maybe. But I feel like they're just daring you to take the under, so do it. Because who is A&M? Who is Jimbo? And it felt like he was on the hot seat. You could feel the hot seat in him. And then Heisman's, I got Milton. He's my pick. Maybe Bowers. Maybe Daniels. Maybe KJ. Nobody in Alabama I see. Nobody in Ole Miss I see. And that's about it. So please let me know in the comments. I'll definitely be touching on more gambling aspects, and more books for sure. Maybe shopping more odds and stuff and seeing how they change and as more week 1 lines open up and stuff. But yeah, other than that, that's my SEC breakdown. Shout out Shmuley for putting together the graphic. And yeah, let's see. It's going to be an exciting year. All right. SEC. Nitro.